Now that our roll line has been marked and basted in, and our canvas has been attached to the wool, we can start marking where our pad stitching on the lapel is going to be. So we'll take our clear plastic ruler and take a different color, different from your roll line. I marked my roll line in green, so I'm going to use blue. And 1/8 of an inch away from my roll line, I'm going to mark in my first line of pad stitching. Okay, and there we go. All right, so again, that's 1/8 away from my roll line. And I'm using my roll line, I'm just basing that right off of my roll line too, 1/8 away. Okay, so the green line's my roll line, the blue line is my first row of pad stitching. Okay, now on the opposite side of the roll line, I'm also going to mark another line 1/8 away. Okay, and this line we'll use later. We're not going to pad stitch on this line, but this is where this is where we're going to put our twill tape to help hold our roll line in place. Okay, so again, on your roll line, you're going to mark into the jacket right now another line 1/8 of an 1/8 away from the roll line. So you should have 2 lines, or 3 lines total, your roll line, and then 2 lines 1/8 away from roll line. Okay, now we're going to continue creating lines for our pad stitching. These are either going to be 1/4 or 3/8 away from that first blue line I marked. Okay, and I'm going to do mine 3/8 because I have a large lapel. All right, if you have a smaller lapel, then I would suggest doing probably 1/4. Okay, so you're just going to mark all these lines, and then once you've marked about 3/4 of your lapel up, okay, you're going to do smaller lines, which I'll tell you about when we get there. But for now, continue marking lines either 1/4 inch if you have a smaller lapel, or 3/8 of an inch away with a larger lapel. Okay, now that I'm about 1/4 of an or 3/4 through my lapel, I'm going to start making my lines closer together. Okay, so instead of 3/8, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. And then once I've done, you know, about half of that quarter that I have left, I'll go down to 1/8 of an inch. So right now I'm doing those quarter lines, 1/4 inch apart. And now I'm going to start doing my lines about 1/8 of an inch apart. Okay, so here we go, just putting in the last lines for pad stitching the lapel. Once we've finished adding all these lines for our pad stitching, we need to draw in our seam allowance. Okay, so we should have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to mark where along my lapel the 1/2 inch seam allowance, basically my stitching line on there. Okay, and I want to mark around my whole lapel that 1/2 inch so that I know where I can pad stitch, because when I do my pad stitching, I don't want to pad stitch into my seam allowance. So I'm going to mark wherever I'm going to pad stitch on my lapel, I'm going to mark where the seam allowance is. Alright, now that our seam allowance is marked, we're ready to start pad stitching.